Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a sledgehammer to an idea that has basically infected our entire modern culture. I'm talking about the absolute obsession with constant positivity and hustling for success. We're told every single day to be happier, richer, more productive. But what if this desperate, endless pursuit of happiness is the exact thing making us so miserable? Well, get ready, because we're going to see how radically accepting our limits, figuring out our true priorities, and carefully choosing our struggles can literally transform your life.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our society is built on, frankly, totally unrealistic expectations. You are constantly bombarded with messages telling you that you need more, always more. But when you really think about it, most modern self-help advice actually forces you to fixate on what you lack. I mean, standing in front of a mirror repeating that you're beautiful, that just secretly reinforces the nagging idea that you aren't already. It's wild, right?
To really get this, let's look at a guy who went completely against the grain, the writer Charles Bukowski. This was a guy who was an alcoholic, a chronic gambler, and just full of flaws. And after decades of flat-out failure, he finally achieved massive success. But here's the kicker. His success didn't come from some kind of toxic positivity or a never-give-up attitude. It came from his unflinching, brutal honesty about his own flaws. He completely accepted himself as a failure. And that is exactly why the epitaph on his gravestone simply reads, "Don't try."
All right, moving right along to Section 1, The Paradox of Happiness.
In his book, Mark Manson totally flips traditional advice on its head. He's not telling us how to get more. Actually, he's telling us how to care about less. The core idea is this: the desire for more positive experiences is, in and of itself, a negative experience. And paradoxically, truly accepting our negative experiences is actually a positive experience. This is a concept the philosopher Alan Watts famously called the backwards law.
And this leads us straight into a psychological trap that pretty much all of us fall into, the feedback loop from hell. Imagine you get anxious about a big work presentation. Okay, normal. But then you realize you're anxious, which makes you anxious about being anxious. Consumer culture and social media make this 10 times worse by convincing us it's somehow abnormal to feel bad. The solution here? You've got to short-circuit this loop by simply accepting that sometimes things just suck. And honestly, that's perfectly fine.
Which brings us to Section 2, Choose Your Problems.
To really illustrate this, Manson introduces a pretty hilarious, kind of tragic superhero, the disappointment panda. Picture a guy wearing a cheap mask and a t-shirt that's way too small for his big belly. His superpower? Knocking on your door to drop the harsh truths you completely refuse to hear. His main message is just a basic biological reality. Suffering is useful. It is literally the engine of human evolution. Listen, problems never actually go away. They just upgrade over time. A homeless person has money problems, and a billionaire has money problems. The billionaire just has much better problems.
So, if problems are an unavoidable, constant feature of life, we arrive at a pretty critical conclusion. Happiness isn't found in some mythical pain-free life. Happiness actually requires struggle. It grows from the active, messy process of solving our problems, not from running away from them.
Which brings us to what might be the most important question of this entire explainer. What is the pain that you want to sustain? Think about it. Everyone wants the reward. Everyone wants the perfect physique, the brilliant career, or the flawless relationship. That's the easy part. The real question, the one that actually determines your path in life, is what pain you are willing to endure. Are you actually willing to endure the grueling 5 a.m. workouts, the massive financial risks, or the incredibly difficult conversations? What you are willing to struggle for is exactly what defines who you are.
All right, let's jump to Section 3, the values that matter.
It all really comes down to our underlying values. If your values are, well, shitty, like chasing immediate pleasure, obsessing over material success, or always needing to be right, you are basically doomed to perpetual anxiety. Why? Because these things depend on external factors you absolutely cannot control. Like, you can't control how many likes you get on a post. Conversely, good values, things like honesty, vulnerability, or humility, are completely internal. They act like a solid anchor because they depend entirely on you.
True self-improvement isn't about, hacking your way to $1 million or seducing more people. It's simply about choosing better things to care about. Good values share 3 key criteria. They are reality-based, they are socially constructive, and they are immediate and controllable. A good value is always something you can choose to act on right now, right in this very present moment.
Moving into Section 4, Responsibility versus Fault. So the crucial point is taking personal ownership. We all know the famous Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
Well, Manson flips it to reveal a much deeper truth. With great responsibility comes great power. Fully accepting responsibility for our problems, yes, even the ones we didn't cause, is the absolute first step to gaining the real power to actually solve them. Now, there's a super vital difference here that people often miss. Fault is oriented toward the past. It's the result of choices already made. Responsibility, however, is firmly in the present. Imagine you wake up one morning, open your front door, and find an abandoned baby on your doorstep. It is absolutely not your fault that baby is there, but it is now entirely your responsibility to decide what to do next. Refusing that responsibility by just blaming others, that just keeps you trapped playing the victim.
Think about the pioneering psychologist William James. He suffered from severe health issues and deep depression, but one day he decided to try a radical experiment. For one entire year, he would take 100% responsibility for everything that happened to him, no matter what it was. Taking complete control of his reactions absolutely changed his life. Look, we all face unfair circumstances. We don't control the events, but we always control how we interpret and respond to them. And remember, choosing not to respond is still making a choice.
Let's tackle Section 5, the action principle.
Now, I know changing your deepest values and taking total responsibility sounds incredibly intimidating. How do you even start when you feel completely stuck? Well, most of us operate on a totally flawed psychological loop. We generally believe that to do a difficult task, we first have to wait for a magic spark of inspiration. That inspiration will generate motivation, which finally leads to action. The huge problem with this? If inspiration never strikes, you just hit a brick wall and do absolutely nothing.
And this brilliantly illustrates Manson's ultimate antidote, the do-something principle. Action isn't just the effect of motivation, it's actually the cause. If you completely lack motivation, just do something, literally anything. Take the smallest possible step. That simple tiny action creates a reaction, a little micro-inspiration, which in turn creates the motivation you need to keep going. It's a game changer.
Finally, how do we make absolutely sure we stay focused on our deep values? By confronting the single absolute certainty in our existence, our own mortality. Remembering that you are going to die acts as this ruthless, clarifying filter. It instantly obliterates all those superficial, shallow values. Suddenly, having the nicest car on the block or the most likes on your phone just completely loses all meaning. Death strips away the noise and reminds us of the only metric that truly matters.
Which leaves us with this ultimate reflection to chew on. If you accept that problems are just an unavoidable part of life, that you have to choose your struggles very carefully, and that you must take complete responsibility for your reactions, what legacy are you actually creating? They say a butterfly flapping its tiny wings can cause a massive hurricane across the globe. So, now that you know what actually matters, ask yourself, what hurricanes will you leave in your wake? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.